Legendary gospel singer Cissy Houston, the two-time Grammy winner and mother of Whitney Houston, died yesterday.
Some secrets survive not because they are well hidden, but because the people who know them understand exactly what would happen if they ever came out. Whitney Houston carried a voice that stopped the world, and she carried something else too, a question about where she truly came from, one that her own mother, Cissy Houston, has never fully put to rest. That question connects Whitney to Teresa Graves, the actress who became the first black woman to lead a crime drama on American network television, and it has been quietly circulating inside the entertainment industry for longer than most people realize. Whitney Elizabeth Houston entered the world on August 9, 1963, in Newark, New Jersey, inside a household where gospel music was not background noise, but the organizing principle of daily life. Her mother, Cissy Houston, had built a name as a gospel singer whose voice appeared on recordings by some of the era's most respected artists. Her cousin, Dionne Warwick, had already established herself as a celebrated performer, with a body of work that demanded attention. Growing up inside that musical environment shaped Whitney in ways that went deeper than training. She absorbed music the way children absorb language, without effort, without instruction, because it was simply the air she breathed. She began singing at New Hope Baptist Church as a small child, and that gospel foundation gave her voice something that no conservatory could have produced, a direct emotional line to whoever was listening. By her teenage years, what Whitney carried inside her was already difficult to ignore. She worked as a background vocalist, absorbed technique from musicians twice her age, and caught the attention of the modeling world at the same time, becoming one of the first black women to appear on the cover of 17 magazine in 1981. That moment mattered, because representation in mainstream American media was still something that had to be fought for one image at a time. And that's when Clive Davis entered the picture, the chairman of Arista Records, a man whose instincts about talent had already reshaped American popular music. Davis encountered Whitney at 19, recognized the scale of what she possessed, and signed her to a record deal that would change the course of music history. Her debut album, Whitney Houston, arrived in 1985 and didn't just sell well, it detonated. The follow-up, Whitney, released in 1987, hit #1 on the Billboard 200 just as its predecessor had, and the singles from both records embedded themselves permanently into the cultural memory of anyone who heard them. 11 #1 singles on the Billboard, Hot 100, including 7 consecutive chart toppers, a streak that has never been matched by any other artist in the history of that chart. 8 Grammy Awards, 22 American Music Awards, 2 Emmy Awards, 30 Guinness World Records, and over 220 million records sold worldwide. Those numbers represent the measurable record, but none of them explain what it actually felt like to be in a room when Whitney Houston sang. What she did to a song was not performance in the conventional sense, and something transferred, something that bypassed the rational mind entirely and arrived directly in the body, in the chest, in the throat. She had the technical range and precision that vocal coaches spend careers trying to teach, and she had the emotional truth that cannot be taught at all, and the combination of those two things produced moments that felt less like concerts and more like events. January 27, 1991, Super Bowl 25, and Whitney's rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner brought an entire stadium to a particular kind of silence that is different from quiet. The country watched and felt something shift. That performance has been studied and referenced and replayed for decades, and it still carries the same weight. What nobody expected, though, was that the following year would produce something even more enduring. The Bodyguard arrived in 1992, a romantic thriller that drew mixed critical notices but generated a soundtrack that became the best-selling movie soundtrack ever recorded. At the center of that soundtrack sat I Will Always Love You, a song originally written and performed by Dolly Parton that Whitney transformed into an entirely different experience. 14 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the best-selling single ever released by a female artist, a recording that people play at the most important moments of their lives because nothing else seems adequate. None of that success protected her from what came next. Whitney's marriage to singer Bobby Brown pulled her personal life into a public spectacle that the media treated with far more appetite than it treated her artistry, and reports of substance use and domestic difficulties accumulated through the years in ways that cast long shadows over her professional achievements. Her 2002 studio album, Just Whitney, arrived into that difficult context and met mixed reviews. But the comeback she mounted afterward was real. Her 2009 album, I Look to You, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, which meant the voice was still there, still capable of what it had always been capable of, still able to make the case for her greatness with every note. She also built a second career as a film producer, contributing to projects including The Princess Diaries, The Cheetah Girls, and the 1997 Cinderella remake, expanding her reach in the entertainment industry beyond what any single title could contain. February 11th, 2012, Whitney Houston was found unresponsive in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles on the evening before the Grammy Awards ceremony. The medical examiner's determination was accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. She was 48 years old. The grief that traveled across the world in the hours that followed was not the organized, expected response that accompanies the death of a public figure. It was disoriented and personal, because people felt they had lost something that had always been there, something they had taken for granted would continue. Radio stations played her catalog without interruption. Fans gathered outside the hotel without anyone organizing them to do so. And the memorial, held on February 18th at New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, was planned for 2 hours and ran for 4, because no schedule written in advance could contain what that day held. Stevie Wonder performed there. Alicia Keys performed. Kevin Costner, her co-star from The Bodyguard, spoke with a rawness that moved everyone present. She was buried the following day at Fairview Cemetery in Westfield, New Jersey, next to her father, John Russell Houston. Her estate sat at an estimated $250 million, the product of a 25-year career that reshaped popular music permanently. The 2022 biographical film, I Wanna Dance with Somebody, carried her story forward to a generation that had grown up in the world her voice had already built. Teresa Graves was born in 1948 in Houston, Texas, which makes her 15 years older than Whitney Houston, a detail that matters to anyone who has tried to map the timeline of the rumor connecting them. She grew up without material comfort, the youngest child in her family, navigating a country that was openly hostile to the full participation of Black Americans in public life. And yet she performed wherever she could: school productions, local shows, any stage that would hold her, because the impulse to entertain was simply stronger than every obstacle placed in front of it. Her parents recognized what she carried and supported it without reservation, which gave her the foundation to keep moving forward even when the industry she wanted to enter was not designed to welcome her. Television found her first. Appearances on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour and Laugh-In established her screen presence and revealed a comedic instinct that was entirely her own. Sharp and warm at the same time, the kind that makes audiences trust a performer immediately. But 1974 brought something that went beyond career advancement. Get Christy Love, a crime drama on ABC in which Teresa played an undercover detective named Christy Love, who was intelligent, physically capable, and completely in command of every scene she occupied. No African-American woman had ever led a network crime drama series before. That's not hyperbole. It was simply a fact about the industry up to that moment, and Teresa Graves changed it. Christy Love was not a supporting character or a love interest or a victim waiting to be rescued. She was the one doing the rescuing. Yeah, the one with the authority, the one the story centered on, and for viewers who had never seen a black woman occupy that position on their television screens, the effect was not entertainment alone. It was a kind of recognition. The show's cancellation in 1975 landed as a blow, but Teresa kept working. Roles on The Love Boat and Fantasy Island followed, and she moved into theater, expanding her range while the industry around her failed to fully appreciate what she had already demonstrated. Over time, her attention turned increasingly toward philanthropy and community work, and those who knew her personally describe a woman whose generosity was as natural as her talent. Someone who invested in the people around her with the same completeness she brought to every performance. Her marriage to James Randolph endured until her death. She had no children of her own, but her devotion to family and close friends was one of the most consistent things about her across every chapter of her life. In 2002, a house fire caused by a malfunctioning heater ended Teresa Graves's life. Smoke inhalation was the cause of death. She was 54 years old, and the world registered her passing without the scale of grief it would later show for Whitney Houston, which says something uncomfortable about how the entertainment industry assigns and withdraws value. But the doors she opened did not close when she died. Every black actress who stepped into a lead role in a crime or action drama after 1974 stepped through a door Teresa Graves had kicked open, and that inheritance does not require acknowledgement to be real. And this is where it gets complicated. Somewhere inside the overlapping world these two women inhabited, black women in American entertainment during the 60s and 70s, both deeply musical, both navigating an industry that wanted their talent without always wanting them, a rumor took hold. The claim is that Teresa Graves was Whitney Houston's biological mother. Not a mentor, not a distant admirer, not a symbolic predecessor. Her actual mother, with Cissy Houston having raised Whitney as her own. Cissy Houston, the most protective guardian of her daughter's memory and reputation, has reportedly addressed these whispers in a way that was neither a clear confirmation nor a clean dismissal, and the carefully maintained ambiguity has kept the story alive through every attempt to let it fade. No DNA evidence exists on the public record. No confirmed documents, no recovered correspondence, no formal statement that settles the question in either direction. What persists is the physical resemblance. Observers who have examined photographs of both women note similarities in the eyes, the bone structure, the quality of their smiles that go beyond coincidence in the estimation of those who study such things. There are the circumstantial overlaps in their professional and social circles. Two women whose paths crossed repeatedly inside an industry that was smaller and more interconnected than its public face suggested. And there are the carefully worded remarks from people who knew them both, statements that seem to acknowledge an unspoken connection without ever completing the sentence. To understand how a secret of that scale could survive for decades, on the world in which it would have been kept, deserves direct examination. Black women in public life during the 60s and 70s in America operated under conditions where personal complexity was not something the industry accommodated. A career built through years of resistance to racism, exclusion, and the particular vulnerability of being visible while also being undervalued. That career could be damaged by scandal in ways that had no equivalent for their white counterparts. Silence was not weakness in that context. Silence was a form of protection, and the people who maintained it understood exactly what they were protecting and why. A secret kept across that much time and that much pressure speaks not to dishonesty but to the weight of what certain truths carried in certain eras. Whitney Houston and Teresa Graves, two women whose careers embodied what it costs to be extraordinary inside systems not designed for you. Whitney dominated the recording industry and film production with a voice that remains the standard against which other singers are measured. Teresa transformed American television by walking to the center of a story that had never been written for someone like her and inhabiting it completely, whether the biological connection between them is ever confirmed or permanently laid to rest. The bond between their legacies is not in question. Teresa broke ground that made visibility possible. Whitney built on that visibility something that will last as long as people feel music. And the question that connects them, the one Cissy Houston has never fully answered, lives in the space between what is recorded and what is real, which is, in the end, exactly where the most durable stories always find their home.